Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel where today we are doing a full-length, non-spoilery review of Stitching Snow by R.C. Lewis. So this is a young adult science fiction retelling of Snow White, where we follow our main character of Essie, and she is living on a backwater planet where she is in charge of coding and maintenance of these 7 drones that work in the local mine. Upon the opening of our story, there is a shuttle that crash lands near Essie's settlement, and she decides to help the pilot repair his shuttle, and everything kind of goes from there. Content warnings for allusions to past rape as well as an aborted rape scene. The language surrounding this, both of these things, is not super direct, but it is very clear what we're talking about. So just be aware of that. So first, let's talk about world building. I thought that the world building was solid given the limitations. This is young adult, it's a standalone, and it's only 325 pages. We just didn't have a lot of time to really dive into a lot of this world building. And keeping that in mind, I do think that the author did a decent job of choosing the details that will help evoke particular feelings. And I think that they did a pretty good job with it on setting and tying in various cultures to the different planets and all of that kind of stuff. The only part where I felt that the lack of details really did affect what was going on was the political situation. We have a king who is evil, and we're given reasons why he's evil, but those reasons also, we're told, are he's doing these to keep a hold on his throne, which is fair. But then my next question is, okay, but why does he need help holding on to his throne in the first place? And that's where we never got anything. And I think personally, I thought that that was important to know, given kind of the fact that this political situation does become much more important to the plot in the back half of this book. And so I rolled with it, but it was like, I could have used more in this instance. Now, to be fair, anything where it was kind of flimsy or there were some holes, I really didn't notice them until I sat down to figure out my thoughts for this review. So I don't think that a lot of it is super noticeable, but and again, given the limitations, I do think that the author did a solid job. Just, I needed more for the politics, really. So next, let's talk about the plot. Now, obviously, this is a retelling. And so one of the questions is how good of a retelling is it? And I'm not really sure how to answer that, because really Snow White as a story doesn't have a whole lot to it. There are certain things that you expect to see, like the dwarves and, the apple. I'm going off of Disney. I've never read the original. I probably should do that. But there's certain, so there, the evil queen, those kinds of things. And we had all of that. And I actually liked the twists that we had. How the author made them original to this particular story. I thought it was nicely done. But I didn't get those retelling vibes that you usually get, and I think it's because Snow White as a story just doesn't have as much going for it as maybe other folk tales or fairy tales. I do think it's a retelling because it hit all of those important points, but at the same time, it didn't give me those vibes. The plot itself, though, I do think unfolded in a very interesting way. So because it's a retelling, we kind of know where we're going to end up, right? The basic outline, at least, of where we're going to end up. And so the first half of this story, I thought was very interesting. There were twists and turns, and I didn't see how we were going to get to that ending. And I actually really appreciated that. And then we hit the second half, and then it became much more linear, much more bland and predictable. And I just didn't appreciate that. And honestly, it's because I think that there was too much plot for the back half. It was an ambitious plot that the author was trying to put into this book, and they really just needed like 50 to 100 more pages to really do it justice. And so because there was so much that we were trying to kind of cram in, we skated over a lot of different parts. We didn't have time to have those twists and turns, and I do think that it kind of suffered for it. I thought it's the contrast between the front half and the back half is a little sad too, because I wouldn't have noticed it as much if the first half hadn't been so compelling. So overall, I ended up liking it, but I was a little bit disappointed by that second half. So next, let's talk about the characters. So our main character is Essie, and I thought she was solid. I really liked her. And one of the things about her that I liked the most is that she is self-taught. So she taught herself how to code and how to fight, and she is good at it when compared to the others in her settlement. But when she does go up against those people that have been trained to do these things, she falls flat on her face. Like, she is not as good as everybody. And I like that that point is made. You can be really good self-taught, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be as good as professionals. And even when she does start training for how to fight, she is not good enough to take on these people who've been training for years. And I really, really like that we didn't have, this character who just automatically took to fighting and was amazing and could take down full-grown adults who have been training for years. Like, that's not realistic. And I like that we didn't do that. The big problem that I had with Essie and how she was written is just that in the middle there was this huge decision that she made that had very big repercussions for her and like who she is as a person, and we just skated by it. Like, we did not take hardly any time to really delve into it and what it means and the talk about the repercussions for who she is as a person or any of that. It was just boom, decision made. And it was a missed opportunity. And again, I think that it's because we were trying to fit so much into the back half that we really didn't have a ton of time to delve into this. But that really made me sad because it could have been amazing. But other than Essie, our main character is Dain. And Dain, I don't have much to say about him because he held so much promise and then he just fizzled out and was super bland. He had personality. The personality itself was just very bland. And so I don't have much to say about him. Everybody else, they were very much lacking in detail and nuance, and for a lot of them, that's okay. It didn't really matter to the story. That they just needed to do what they were going to do to help the story along, right? Except for the king and queen. We got so few details about them, and I do think that if we had gotten more, it really would have added to the depth of their character and the depth of the story overall. And so that was another part that I think was lacking. And another part that I honestly think if we had just had a few more pages to this book, we could have added enough to make it amazing. There is a romance in this, and I struggled a little bit. And the main reason is because, so obviously it's between Essie and Dain, because those are the only two named characters that I mentioned. But so there's a romance between them. And in the, towards the beginning of the story, Dain makes this huge decision that has big implications for Essie and her life. She can never go back, kind of thing. And it's bad. Like, her new life is going to be worse than her old one. And she is righteously indignant, which makes sense. But then she finds out why he did it, and it's an understandable reason. And she's like, oh, that's understandable. And I would have done the same thing in your place. And she just, all her righteous indignation just kind of dissipates. And she's still angry, but even that anger does not last for very long. And I was just like, whoa, hey, you can understand why somebody did something. And you can even say, I would do the same in your situation. And you can still be angry. Like, those three things can exist all at once. And so the fact that she just let go of it so very quickly, especially when, how much her life has changed because of this, I mean, it just didn't feel very real to me. And it was also a little irritating because there was actually later in the story a natural point where she could have let go of her anger, and we just didn't. And it's again because we had such a compressed amount of space, so much had to happen in that back half that they wouldn't have had enough time to develop out the romance properly. And so to me, that was super frustrating because I'm like, it could have been better if we had just pushed it back to that other plot point where it made more sense. So, yes, that was unfortunate. And then honestly, after that, it was just bland teenage love story, which, like, they're teenagers, so okay. But I just didn't really care, to be honest. Um, so next, let's talk about pacing and writing style. I think it is on the medium to fast-paced side, and the writing style is much more of a driving kind of writing style. I didn't necessarily want to ever put this down, and when I put it down, I was interested. I wanted to pick it back up and see what was going to happen. And the writing style itself was very easy to read. Stylistically, there is one of those things that the author does where, like, when we first meet Essie, she doesn't lay out her backstory. When she's talking to Dane, she, in her words and her thoughts, she does make allusions to her past. And usually when authors do that, I hate it because I'm like, you're clearly holding back information. Don't do that to me. Either give me all the information or don't mention it at all, right? And actually, I thought that the author did a nice job with it, and I'm interested to see if anybody else has read this. Let me know what you think about it, because usually I'm super irritated with it, and this time I was fine. I mean, there were definitely times where I looked at it and I said, you didn't do as good of a job with it as I would have liked, but generally speaking, I was fine with it. And then lastly, let's talk about the diversity. And well, we saw different socioeconomic classes on the various worlds, and we did have one group of people that was considered outcast and not treated as well because of an ability that they have that scares everybody else. But other than that, nothing. There is no diversity. So just be aware of that. But honestly, overall, I really did actually like this story. I know that I'm like telling you all the things that I'm like, it could have been better. And the reason that I do nitpick like that is because it's actually, like, it was a good book. And if we had just, again, if we had just had a little bit more of length to it, I think we would have had enough time to fix some of those things that I'm a little nitpicky about and had an amazing story. And so that's why. But honestly, it still is fun. It's engrossing. I think it's a good addition to the retelling genre, and I enjoyed my time with it. So I ended up giving it 4.25 stars. If you have read it and you want to talk spoilers, come. I'm actually good with that, even though this is a non-spoilery review. Please just put it under the cut, hit enter a bunch of times, and then talk about your spoilers. But that's it. That's all I have, you guys. So until next time, have happy reading, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.